Hey everybody, welcome into the channel. My name's Ramsey. This is Rajathan. I do book reviews and trying to get into a little bit of lore, and really wanted to jump into one of the most interesting and neat magic systems I've ever seen. The magic system in Lightbringer has just totally floored me, and the more I dig into it and read Brent Week's work, I'm intrigued about it. I'm re-listening to the series so I could try to hear how the narrator talks about it. So read it physically, and then now I'm listening to it on audiobook to try to really get all the details out of it. I think I've got a pretty good handle on it, and wanted to share with you guys what I've come up with. So I want to read off the page here so I get it exactly right. The definition of chromaturgy is magic that is based on light and the ability to manifest light into physical form. The form that takes is luxin. So when we talk about the different colors of luxin, we're talking about the form that they're able to transfer light into. So I'm going to show you something that Brent Weeks uses as an example, where as a candle burns, light is emitted and the candle is wasted. And the way he explains it is, as the light is used, something is created. So went ahead and ran a candle front ways and a candle back ways to kind of show you what he meant there. So every color of luxin has its own properties. It changes the way you feel while you're drafting it. It reacts to the world in different ways, and some luxins are harder, stronger, and we'll get into that in a more detailed explanation of each individual luxin. And I wanted to go in for you guys into where the colors lay on the color spectrum, how it relates to our world, where we use the visible light spectrum, kind of if you look at a rainbow. So I'm going to show you this graphic here where we're looking at a rainbow. This is broken down for an elementary school class. I found it on a learning site. And you have Roy Jabiv, is how I learned it back in school. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Well, here in this world, we're a little bit different. We have sub-red, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, superviolet. And then there are 4 heretical colors that we don't even talk about in book 1. But I'm going to do a couple minor spoilers into book 2 and 3. And we'll talk about those heretical colors a little bit. Not a huge spoiler, but I definitely want to let you know that if you I would read all the way through book 1 before you go ahead and watch this video. So if you're watching this video now, very, very minor spoilers, but I want to definitely let you know this could be one of those things where something does get spoiled for you, and if you just despise spoilers, come back and watch this after book 2. Because after book 2, I don't think I'm spoiling anything at all for you. So one of the cool things that we look at is luxin has weight. You look at each different individual luxin, and we talk about the luxin is formed inside their bodies, and then it has to be pushed out of their bodies. So when you look at Wolverine's claws, how it has to come out of his body, but eventually he creates a scar tissue there where it doesn't hurt as bad. Gavin is in the prison, and he pushes the infected tissue in his body out using green luxin, because he mentions to us that luxin is sanitary. Later on in the series, we talk about superviolet, where superviolet is used as an antiseptic. And we'll get into that more when we get into the superviolet portion of this. But it is so neat how luxin comes from inside our body, and it is sanitary. That is a neat thing. And then we create scar tissue that forms around the sites where you let luxin come out. Luxin can come out of any part of your body, so I have understood, but it hurts when it comes out of there the first time. Imagine something coming out of your skin. Kip talks about the first time that he drafted, his hands were bleeding. And then it seems like eventually you gain the calluses that as your skin opens up, the luxin freely flows out of the parts of your body that it tries to flow from. So it's really interesting and neat that there are so minor consequences here, and we'll get into like halo breaking, very major consequences in just a minute as well. There's a saying in the Chromeria, which is basically the Chromaturgy College that is on Big Jasper, and it's the seat of the government as well. All the drafters basically go there, go to college-ish. It's more like high school college, but they go there, they're trained, they learn a whole bunch about their color, and it's where the seat of power is too. So the most powerful drafters in the world usually live there. So as Kip is learning in the Chromeria, he gets a definition where it says there are 4 items needed to draft. You need source, will, still, and skill. So as a drafter is looking for a source, they need a color. Like only the prism can look up at the sun and draft with that pure color. Most drafters use what we call spectacles. I'm gonna show you a picture of like swimming goggles. It's kind of what it seemed like, but they're a lot more. They're prettier than this. It gives them the ability. They want to look at like a white light or a white piece of something. The first time we see the goggles used is in the very first chapter. And Kip meets a green white. A white is someone who has gone so far and they've broken the halo. The green white places a pair of green goggles on his eyes and goes to fight some red drafters. Now, back before they learned about the spectacles, you would have to be around something green. Say you had green grass, green trees. That's why a lot of times drafters were in more particular areas. The green drafters were drawn to the forest. The red drafters were drawn to the lava fields and the cracked lands in the desert. And so, the blue drafters were drawn to the sea. Blue was probably the easiest to draft because you could just look up most days. The most interesting thing is that for a long time, drafters had to just rely on what they were relying on. But Lucidonius, who we'll talk about a little bit later, he kind of started the Chromeria. He kind of started the worship of a Horlum, which is the god in this world, and they were worshiping minor gods. Okay, so move the camera a little bit here. Hope it's not too jarring. Now, I've talked a lot about the lore. I want to jump into the colors themselves, kind of do a good explanation on the colors, how they're used, what they smell like, all those kind of things. So as we start with the left side of our spectrum here, we're looking at sub-red. Starting with sub-red, sub-red is very light and it feels like a hot wind. It is hard to quantify because it almost immediately catches fire when it's exposed to the air. The god associated with sub-red is Anat. And while drafting, you become more passionate. Sub-red drafters often have a much higher body temperature, causing the men to be sterile. Most people claim sub-red Luxon smells like charcoal or something burned. Most trained sub-reds work with red drafters to light red Luxon on fire, and they nickname red Luxon fire crystal. Now, red Luxon is more of a gel or a tar-like, very sticky and very flammable. The red god is Dagnu, and a red drafter is more angry, goes into rages, and has a hard time controlling that anger. Red Luxon smells like dry tobacco. A lot of red drafters make good soldiers. They nickname it pyre jelly. A lot of orange drafters are considered not very useful in war. While that can be true, orange is most commonly used as a lubricant and can be highly useful for key siege equipment and keeping it working. Orange is the second heaviest Luxon after red and feels super slick and even soapy. The god for orange is Molkul, and orange drafters are great at seeing how things fit together and are commonly artists, experts at political maneuvering, and can be quite greedy. Orange Luxon smells like almonds. We don't talk much about orange Luxon in the series, and it feels a lot like Hufflepuff in Harry Potter, important but not to our story. The nickname for orange is Norin jelly. Now, yellow Luxon may be the most important Luxon in this world altogether. It is the middle of our spectrum and has two useful states: an effervescent, bubbly liquid, and a very smooth solid when drafted as a solid. As yellow is the middle, Brent Weeks gives us the weight for yellow Luxon, and he says it is slightly heavier than water. For reference here, water is 8.34 pounds a gallon. At 5 gallons, we're looking at 42 pounds. So drafters have to be strong to throw that Luxon. Yellow drafters tend to be cheery but impassive. The god of yellow is Belhagor, and he is the god of sloth. Yellow smells like eucalyptus or mint. Now, where I said orange is the forgotten Luxon, green is the opposite. I didn't do the research, but my guess is that green is the most used Luxon in this series. Green Luxon can feel like leather when drafted well, and tree bark when drafted poorly. It is very springy and flexible, kind of like a green tree branch. The green god is Adarat, and green drafters are wild, not liking rules and ready to charge ahead of the pack. Kip and Karis draft green a lot, and it shows in their personality. A lighter Luxon than yellow, but just slightly, and smells like fresh cedar. Now we get to blue Luxon. Blue is my favorite color. Blue is very hard and angular Luxon. Smooth to the touch, but maybe even a bit crystalline. A lot of items are built in blue and covered in yellow to keep it strong, the yellow renewing the blue like a wax coating. The blue god is Mott. Blue drafters are very analytical and look for the logic in things. They can be a bit OCD about things. Blue almost doesn't have a smell, but it smells a whole lot like chalk when it comes down to it. And when it dissolves, it's very chalky. It's been described that way a few times in the series. And last but not least, we have Superviolet. Well, we still have the heretical colors to go over too. Superviolet is imperceptive to the naked eye, great for hidden messages, and we commonly see superviolet switches to activate the great lens in Rue and controls in the Chromeria. Recently, it was found to sped up the healing of wounds in battle and can be very useful in camp hospitals. The god of superviolet is Feralux, often cold and contemplative, hyper rational, and alien people. Can be very prideful, and this Luxon smells like cloves, commonly nicknamed spider silk. Now we get to the heretical colors. Why are they called that? Well, 7 is the perfect number, and anything outside of that is considered bad by the Luxats, who are the priests of the Ohorlum religion that we have here. At some points, drafters who used these colors were hunted down and killed, very much in an Inquisition-style hunt. The 4 heretical colors are Parl, Chi, white, and black. So much less is known about these because the Luxats have purged the information. Even our glossary in the back of the book has it purged. Peril is the one that we get to know because of Tia, is super light and acts like an imperceivable gel. I think of meringue when I think of Peril. Try to throw meringue. Impossible. Many legends say that Peril drafters make good assassins and thieves. While talking with Murder Sharp, we are able to see that drafting Parl makes you super compassionate and empathetic. Parl itself smells like saffron. Chi is much more vague. We don't have a Chi drafter until very late in the series, and I don't know the smell or best use of this, or even the emotional state that you get into because it's never said. But a huge bit of info we get is that when you draft Chi, you get cancer. Also, in an old text, it is called the Revealer. Then we have black and white Luxon. White smells of honey and lilac, and black of death. I cannot find where they go on the spectrum. Maybe we'll see in book 5. I don't really see a use for white Luxon in the book series. I've looked for it and I can't find it. Black Luxon, we have seen, does cause some memory loss. Also, when touched with black Luxon, it does drain Luxon from you. I don't know if white does the opposite of that. You would assume it would, but I've never seen any reference to it. So little is known about these colors that I don't have great information for you, and I hope I get more in book 5 to really round this out, and maybe I can make a part 2 just on heretical colors once we get some better information from Brent Weeks. So with the 4 outer colors, we have Subred, Superviolet, Chi, and Peril. We get some interesting things that happen with eyes. Now I know I talked to you guys about breaking the halo. Now in book 2, Iron Fist actually tells Kip that the reason that we get a halo is because we don't draft all of the light that we see. So as we draft, some of that is kept in our bodies, and that's what causes us to break the halo eventually. The reason that the prism can draft so much is because he perfectly drafts. He's able to split light with his prismatic eyes, and he's able to perfectly draft and get every bit of the light out of his body. So as we look at the different colors, I want to show you a picture. One is going to be what Superviolet looks like, where it's a very narrow pupil, and then the other one's going to be Subred. In Subred and in Superviolet, you are able to see things the naked eye cannot see. A lot of Subred looks like infrared for me. You can see the heat of a person's body. Makes a lot of sense. Subred is a very heat-related item, and then you would see the heat-related vision. Superviolet is described as more of an alien type of light, maybe a black light kind of look. It's not 100% clear. They only speak of it very dimly in book 2, but you do realize that you have to shrink your pupil down to see in the superviolet spectrum. When we get into Parl, it actually expands our pupil all the way open, and our entire eye is the pupil. It is said to look very, very weird and gross. I'm assuming we don't actually tell what Chi is, but I'm assuming your pupil goes almost down to nothing. With Parl, you can actually see through clothing, and that's one of the great things that when Tia is joining the Blackguard, Iron Fist wants her in because she's basically like a body scanner. We get this image here from what she sees, and then on Chi, the other end of the spectrum, we is almost an X-ray, and that's most likely why we get a cancer causing on that, because you see into the X-ray. And so that is such an interesting way where we get into the larger expanded colors. Our eyes have to shift to be able to deal with those colors, and I think it's really neat. Next, I'm going to go into monochromes, bichromes, and full spectrum polychromes, and then a little bit about the prism. Hey guys, if you got to this point in the video, I really want you guys to consider sharing this video. It would help me out a ton. I spent a lot of time creating this video, doing a whole bunch of research. I'm hoping this is a great way for you guys to get in and understand the magic system, and if there's anything I've forgotten, please tell me. I am so excited about this magic system. I want to learn everything I can about it. I usually do a lot of talking on the Lightbringer subreddit, and I hope that we can continue this conversation. In conclusion, I wanted to go ahead and talk about monochromes, bichromes, polychromes, and then the spectrum himself. So as you look, most drafters are monochromes. Monochromes can only draft one color, and they have to be able to draft that color well. You may be even able to draft Luxin, but not draft it well enough to create a solid, stable Luxin. Then you will be considered not an actual drafter. When you're able to draft two colors in a solid, stable Luxin, you're considered a bichrome. Kind of makes sense. Bicycle bichrome. And then polychrome is 3 or more, which can be all the way up to a full spectrum polychrome. You're looking at 4, 5, 6. At 7, you're a full spectrum polychrome, and that's a little bit different. The reason that a full spectrum polychrome and the prism are different is because the prism, with his prismatic eyes, is able to 100% draft, turn 100% of the light in his body into Luxin. We, on the other hand, are not able to do that. We absorb that light and then gain a halo. That's why normal mono, bi, and polychromes will gain a halo and eventually break the halo, and the prism is different. One of the last things I want to talk about is disjunctive bichromes. It's very, very rare, kind of like a male superchromat. We have a few examples of this. Viv is a superviolet yellow, and Karis is a red-green. Karis can actually draft a little bit of sub-red, but not enough to be considered a polychrome. That's why she made it into the Blackguard. The last thing I want to talk about, and probably the most important thing to a drafter, is will. Will is stressed so highly in the series because the small imperfections that you have in your drafting are covered up by will. So a male who's not able to exactly get to that perfect blue can cover that up with will and create a solid blue. When Kip in the first book goes green golem, his will is an indomitable will. He's able to create solid Luxin outside of his body and be this large green golem that's absorbing bullets and doing all kinds of crazy stuff because his will, it's his mental strength. That's why a lot of times you'll see drafters as being kind of arrogant because they have to believe that anything they create is gonna work, because the minute they doubt themselves, their Luxin falls apart and they are no longer any good as a drafter. So they have a little bit of that arrogant cockiness because they have to have it. I have my Lightbringer Should You Read series if you guys want to watch that. Also have the social media links down below in the description. If you want, I'm currently doing a read along for the whole series on Caravan, which is an app where we do a buddy read through Discord. Love you guys to join that as well. Thank you for coming by. If you haven't, subscribe. It would help me out a ton. Like the video if you can, and thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful and amazing night. Thank you for watching this video.